As I've mentioned, Antique Engine Repair in Indiana is the one that rebuilt the short block. They've given me some really good instructions on how to finish assembling the short block to make it a long block. I've read the instructions 10 times over. I don't want to make any mistakes in my part of it, putting it all back together. But the instructions were very good. And so I'm going to follow them right now as I put the timing cover on and all the components there. So let's get her done. You know, this is the timing pin, right? This gives you, when inserted into this cover, it'll tell you where TDC is, or top dead center on cylinder number 1 is. Why? Because there's a little dimple right here, that white spot. And as soon as this pin goes further in, then you know that you're a TDC on cylinder number 1, and you can adjust the distributor, the distributor accordingly. Anyway, I found something kind of cool on, at least this is new for me. I haven't seen this before, but it's a great little tool, and it's spring-loaded. Basically, this is what it looks like. And you screw it in here. Where's the hole? There's the hole. You screw it all the way in as far as it'll go. And here on this inside, you can see it a little bit. See there? And as soon as this is, when it's screwed all the way in, when this thing is on here, it's like this, right? This little ring is flopped over to the side. As soon as it finds that dimple in this gear, then the pin goes in and this ring sticks out like that. Isn't that cool? And that way you're not trying to turn the crank and pushing on the pin the old-fashioned way of manually pushing on that pin to hold it in place to be able to feel when this pin hits into the dimple on the gear. So this was a cheap little tool that I think everybody would appreciate. And anyway, so I just thought I would throw that out there. It looks like, I've never used it before, but it looks like a pretty good idea. Okay, so the first thing we have to do is put on the oil slinger, which is this right here, and it's got a little bit of a lip there. That lip goes out. That goes like that. Then we have our modern seal, and this has got a lip on it as well, and that sharp part goes to the back. So this is going to the back of the engine. Whoops. Now, before we do that, we got to put on the pulley. This is a two-part pulley. Originally, when these motors were made, it was a single piece like this. One piece, right? And the problem with this one piece is if you had to take this off to get the belt off, you would have to remove the radiator. So basically, with a two-piece, all you have to do is unscrew the nut, and this thing will come apart because the radiator is really close to here. But having this two-piece, it's much easier to pull away from the engine. You don't have to pull the radiator in order to get the belt off. So that part goes on here next. And of course, it's got a little, the key right here on the crankshaft. So it's going to fit on there like that. In the place, that's pretty simple. And then our modern seal that goes on. It said to put a little bit of grease on here to help slide it on, which I did. And it'll sit right about there because now this piece goes on to it. It also called for silicone on the outside all the way around, right? This thing is spinning and it's holding it on the inside, but nothing's holding the oil from coming out. So what I use and what was recommended by the engine company was this material right here. And we're going to put a little dab on here to make a better seal. And I'm actually going to stick it into this trough on the cover. I'm not going to put it on here. I'm going to put it on here. Well, that's not coming out very fast. So we'll take that cap off. And squirt it in there. I don't think you need a whole lot, but we don't want any oil coming out of the engine at all, do we? Nope. Okay, that looks pretty good. A little greasy, a little messy. I think that will be just fine. All right, and then we got our plunger spring, which goes right here. And what that does is the plunger pushes against the cam and keeps the cam into the block. So that goes on first, or next, I should say. So there's a spring. And then the plunger itself. I don't know if that went in there right. It did. And I put a little grease on there. And that thing is pressure pushing out so that it's pushing on the camshaft like that. So now I've got a little grease on here. It says not to use the silicone sealant for the covers, so I won't. So I'm going to stick it on there like that. Hopefully this all stays in place. And that's on, that's on. And we're going to rotate this down a little bit to align that first bolt. And of course, we have a long bolt that goes to the bottom. The instructions say do not tighten any of these bolts at this point in time. So now we're going to put on the other half of the pulley, which is here. And actually, I'm going to get some of that excess silicone off there, or sealant. Here's our pulley. And here is our nut. That's going on there nice. And here's our torque wrench. Just joking. I'm just going to cinch this out down a little bit so that the two halves go all the way in. Like that. Okay, cool. This is a great tool, by the way, for turning over the motor without having to use your typical crank handle down by the radiator. So this slides right in between the radiator, which is here, and you're able to turn over the motor with this. So this is a good tool to have on hand also. Okay, so this calls for 80 pounds of torque on this nut right here, and it is set for 80 pounds. So let's get her done. There we go. And there's 80 pounds. That was pretty easy. All right, here's the inside. This is the plunger I was telling you about that sticks out here, right here. And on the inside, you can see that plunger pushing against the camshaft. So that's how that works. So there you have it. I'll go ahead and when I touch up with paint, I'll paint these bolts on here so that it looks really nice, but that's after the pan goes on and everything else goes on. So there's our first part of the short block becoming long.
The next engine-related video shows more parts being added. When the engine is finished being put together, a very special guest will offer feedback on what I did right and wrong. You won't believe who the guest will be. Don't miss it. Also, be sure to subscribe to the channel if you wish to see future videos as this 1930 Model A 4-door is being restored. And check out ModelAT-shirts.com. There is some really cool stuff depicting Model A's. Thanks for watching.